Good morning, everyone. Today, me and my group are going to be talking about the scandal at JP Morgan involving the CEO. Right here, I will play a brief audio clip regarding what the CEO had said.
Play out just a little portion of that. Here is that linked audio.
Not paying attention, not reading your stuff, and if you don't think that slows down efficiency, creativity, creates rudeness, and stuff, it does, okay? And when I found out that people are doing that, you don't do that at my meetings. You're gonna meet with me, you got my attention, you got my focus, I don't bring my phone, I'm not saying text to people, okay? It simply doesn't work, and it doesn't work with creativity, it slows down decision making, and don't give me the work from home Friday works. I told a lot of people Friday that I couldn't get a hold of them.
All right, there you go.
So regarding that information, today we are going to be looking at what he said, why it backfired, and how he could have better handled the leadership and the communication styles. The end goal of today's presentation is going to be to show the alternative communication strategies that have addressed the RTO and conflict without resorting to profanity and alienating the workforce. Formally, I would like to introduce my group.
I'm Skylar. I'm Tao.
I'm Shadi.
I'm Eva.
And I'm Nathaniel. And this is today's agenda. I will now be passing it over to Skylar to talk about the company background.
Okay, so who is JP Morgan Chase? According to a 2025 article written by Mo Virgin, Chase is one of the largest in the big four banks. They have been accessible for over 225 years now, and they hold a $379 billion in assets. They started off in 1799 as Bank of Manhattan Company, and since then have transitioned to now Chase, which has been Chase since 2005. So a little bit more about the CEO. This is Jamie Dimon. He has been with Chase since 2006 and holds both titles of Chairman and Chief Executive Officer. He did work at other major financial institutions before, like Bank One, Citibank, and also where it all began, which was at American Express. Some of the services that Chase offers is commercial banking, corporate investment banking, asset and wealth management, and consumer and community banking, which are both accessible through not only the Chase Bank app, but also through your local Chase Bank branches. So according to How We Do Business PDF slideshow on the JP Morgan Chase website, it is said that their top 5 core values are service, heart, curiosity, courage, and excellence. At JP Morgan, they put their customers first and take pride in what they do. Onto their financials, JP Morgan does have some competitors such as Morgan Stanley, HSBC, Wells Fargo, and Citibank. As you can tell by the numbers, JP Morgan is the better successor and has higher numbers whenever it comes to employees, valuation, net income, and gross profit. They also hold a market cap of $842 billion, which is the company's outstanding stock shares.
Now we'll be passing it on to Tao to talk about the situation in the case.
During the pandemic in 2020 and 2021, JP Morgan moved the remote work due to social distancing requirement, as reported by CBS News. By 2023, the bank had shifted into the hybrid structure. Employees in certain departments are allowed 2 or 3 day remote days a week, while senior leader and client-facing team were required to be in the office. Following the pandemic in 2024, CEO Jamie Dimon continued to emphasize that collaboration and culture are better maintained in person. Then in early 2025, the company allowed that full-time return to office policy required by most hybrid employees to come in 5 days a week, starting in May. And then what happened in February 2025, the company memo stated that now is the right time to full-time in office because the benefits in-person work is irreplaceable. In response, employees began to organizing the CWA and forming group to oppose the mandate. This organizing effort were reported by Chen and Brownstein. In February 2025, a town hall record of Damon Willick. In the audio, he criticized the hybrid and remote work model, arguing that long-term remote work harms younger employees by limiting creativity and decision-making. The most controversial moment was when Diamond said, "If you don't like it, you can quit."
We'll now be passing it off to Ella and Shani to talk about the identification and analysis and the lessons and hurdles.
So when we identify the issue, we want to start off with their leadership style. So Diamond used a top-down authoritarian approach, and also the lead's comments sounded really dismissive and disrespectful, which damages trust. Nordhaus 2020 says that this directive style often shuts down collaboration because employees have zero input in the decision, making them feel powerless. No employee input on the return to office policy leads to frustration and conflict. Now for the communication breakdown, it wasn't really reciprocative, it was very one way. And then that leads to employees resenting their leaders because they feel unheard and unvalued. And that leads to defensive tones and escalating frustration. Finally, for the emotional intelligence gap, low empathy towards employee concerns once again increases frustration, conflict, and poor awareness on the impact of morale made Diamond seem very cold as if he didn't really care about his employees, and kind of a stickler. He didn't really accept the cultural shift that we have been seeing as a result of COVID towards the hybrid work.
Alright, so for analysis, I'd like to start off by talking about destructive leadership. Diamond's tone in the leaked audio came across as hostile and dismissive, and he used his positional power to pressure employees rather than to motivate them. This kind of behavior does multiple things, such as reducing psychological safety, which means that people don't feel comfortable speaking up. We've talked about some of these concepts in class, and they can also be related to articles such as by John Lipman Blumen, who described destructive leaders as showing traits like arrogant, low empathy, and excessive control. In the middle, we can also talk about the over-reliance on authority. So instead of leading through influence, Diamond leaned entirely on his position as CEO and of power. Compliance did increase, but the way he went about it could be seen as incorrect because people felt forced to follow the policy rather than leading by direction and motivation. So there was also a lack of transparency, and there were no real listening channels, which, like Eva said, to make that two-way communication something that the employees feel like is present. Finally, we can talk about the outcome. Overall, what started as an internal policy quickly turned into a public scandal. So the employees felt unheard, and they began reaching out to groups, outside groups for that, such as the Communication Workers of America for support. And the core problem wasn't JP Morgan's whole system, but it was the way the messages were delivered and experienced by employees and staff members as well.
So now for the lessons and hurdles, the first one would be when addressing issues, instead of using extreme combative language like the CEO used, incorporate a more respectful, even, kind of solution-oriented tone, according to Nordhaus 2020. Secondly, instead of rigidly defending one's viewpoint whilst arguing, focus on common interests to separate the problem from the people, whereas this problem would be remote work, say for example. And then finally, when selecting a conflict management style, try to aim for a mix of collaboration and accommodation. This mixture allows all parties to feel seen and strengthens relationships while also boosting employee morale and work quality, according to chapter 12.1 in our intro to leadership textbook.
So let's talk about where JP Morgan is now, right? Several months after the scandal, after the issue, where have things settled down? So employees have started pushing for unionization, but those conversations are still active and nothing is set in stone yet. JP Morgan has also fully moved forward with its kind of doubling down on its return to office mandate, and hybrid workers are now required to be in office 5 days a week. Internal surveys show that employees' well-being and work-life balance have dropped slightly since the mandate, and at the same time, the company opened up its newest headquarters, which heavily leans into the in-person 5 days a week mandate.
So now to go ahead and close this off, here is a leadership quote regarding Simon Sinek. Leadership is not about being in charge, it is about taking care of those in your charge. Basically what that means is that this scandal is an example of the importance of effective communication and emotional intelligence in managing an organization. And leaders must not only set the key strategies for the business, but also learn to listen, emphasize, and communicate clearly in order to build trust within their employees. Thank you. Any questions? And then stop.
Hey, yo, this means
Good job, guys.
What'd you give it? Like, good.
Thumbs up or pass? Perfect. Pass fail.
Can you send that in the Teams